Hi everybody, Rory at Clawden Painting Studio here with the next part of our introduction to Napoleonics guide. We're going to be looking at British line infantry. We'll be painting this Perry miniature. It's been constructed for use in the Peninsular War as opposed to the 100 Days campaign. Main difference is we have a different shako, the stovepipe as it was called. This is replaced later on with the Belgic shako for the 100 Days campaign and for later parts of Peninsular War. The trousers as well, the overalls, we'll be painting them in off-white. Typically for the 100 Days campaign you'd be looking at grey. The officer uniforms are a bit different as well. Shakos and shorter coattails as opposed to bicorns and longer coattails. Might consider painting an officer up later, but sticking to the rank and file. The Peninsular War period gives quite a lot of flexibility for your games, and the length of it in comparison to the 100 Days campaign means that this uniform is going to be more appropriate for more of the period, so that's why we're painting that today. We're going to mainly be using contrast paints to lay down our base coats, and we will have a couple of metallics added in, and we'll finish off with some highlighting as well with some acrylic paints. It's been primed white, and the first thing we're going to do is paint those overalls and the haversack as well. We've got some Skeleton Horde. I have thinned this about 50-50 with the contrast medium, and that's because it's a slightly lighter finish, which kind of is a bit more appropriate for off-white than neat out the bottle, I find. With the contrast paints, I think it's always good to sort of start on a flatter surface, such as the thigh, and then finish your brush strokes in the recesses where you want most of that paint to pool and give you your shadows. Okay, with the Skeleton Horde finished, we're going to paint our white areas with Apothecary white. Across the chest we have some cross straps and the shoulder straps of the bag and some white lace. Our turnbacks are white as well, and on the shoulder, little shoulder board decorations in white too. And lastly the lace on the cuffs. On the back model, straps on the pack. With the white finished off, we'll look at the skin. I've got contrast Darkoath flesh. With the skin done, we're going to get the shako, the backpack, the cartridge box, the gaiters, the boots, and also the bayonet sheath done in black Templar. So black is painted. We'll tackle the musket stock with some Gore Grunta fur. I am going to layer this all over the metal of the musket as well, and that's just because the metallic silver will apply later and will look a bit better over a darker base coat than it would over white. Okay, so I've left the white of the strap on the musket, and we'll move on to the red of the jacket. I've used Blood Angel's red. Now what I'd probably recommend is actually swapping between brushes here. A big brush for the sleeves, got my size 2, and then I'm going to come back with a size 0 to go in between the lacing on the front of the jacket. Blood Angels red applied. Smaller brush, much better for getting in between the lacing on the front than our big chunky one. There's a couple of other spaces between the straps that the size 2 just wouldn't go into. Need a bit of red, just the bottom half of the plume, and at the rear of the jacket as well. And if you can get in to divide the straps and the turn back from each other, then some red there. We'll look at the jacket on the pack using Bascilicanum grey. That's the greatcoat roll painted with Bascilicanum grey. The canteen, the water bottle, just on top of the haversack here. I have some Gryph Charger grey, which is sort of a blue grey. It doesn't cover particularly well, and a couple of coats might be needed here. So while I wait for the Gryph Charger grey to dry on the canteen, we'll do the collar and cuffs. I am painting a sort of 1808 Corunna campaign. So this is the 36th Regiment of Foot, which had green. So I've got some Creed Camo, as well as the collar. We have the cuffs as well. I just want to try and paint around the skin and also in between the lacing. So after the collars and cuffs, I got some Snakebite leather to do the leather cord, which is running across the shoulders here. I've also used a bit on this plate in the centre. That's going to be painted brass, and it works better with a brown coat. The leather cord continues down to be the strap on the water bottle, and I also use Snakebite leather for his hair. So that's the basic contrast colours applied. Next step, if you wanted to leave the model there, would be some metallics for the musket and the brass plates on both the shackle and across the cross straps. But we're going to do some highlighting as well, so we'll come back for that in a second. So back for some highlights. We have applied some Foundry gunmetal and Vallejo brass to the model since we left it. I think if we're going to highlight any area to really sell the model's paint job, it is the face. I've got some Army Painter Corpse Pale, and we don't have to do very much. We're just going to leave a wee dot on the nose, a little for the cheekbones, a little bit on the top lip and the chin, and just on the tips of the knuckles as well. The knees and other sort of prominent parts of the overalls will get some Vallejo game colour Elfic flesh. A little bit on the haversack as well. And the edges of all the black areas, some Vallejo model colour, London grey, will just help pick them out. For the red, a little bit of Vallejo Scarlet, and we'll highlight the prominent areas such as the upper arm here. So some of those folds. The white straps we'll pick out with some off-white from Vallejo. So added some off-white just to highlight the edges of our straps and other white areas. The final thing I did was apply a bit of Army Painter's soft tone to the brass plates, just to add a bit of shading there. We'll get a squad of this guy's mates that I've already put together and based, and we'll set them up for our final look. So here's 8 finished British line infantry for the Peninsular War. I've based them with Luke's APS Mediterranean soil quick base material, which gives us sort of a nice sandy look. The contrast paints then I think provide a really nice base for quickly painting up models. I think that the paint itself is quite useful when you have fancy lace to paint around. The red that we've used here will flow really nicely into the recesses between the lacings if you use a small brush. Much better than with another sort of traditional acrylic paint. And that does make it a bit easier to get around the lace details. I think the Blood Angels Red is one of the strongest contrast paints, in that it's one of the better ones in the range, and I think it works really well on these red coats. Skeleton Horde Neat I think is a bit too dark for the sort of off-white for the breeches that I wanted, but diluted about 50-50 with contrast medium does take it down to a much better final colour. After you've done all those contrast paints as base layers, they are perfectly fine to leave it there, but just a couple of minutes per model with some very brief highlighting can really help sell the finish, I think, as well. There's plenty of opportunity for coming back and doing things like the eyes if I really wanted, but I think for rank and file troops it's not something I would always do. Plenty more of these chaps needed if I want to do some sharp practice in 1808 on the retreat to Corunna. At some point we'll do a 95th rifle in their dark green jackets as well to round out that skirmish force. If you want any comments, please leave them below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon with another video. Bye bye.